Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve. Today's video is a spoiler-free review of Season 3, Episode 5. I did this last week and it seemed like some people were interested in getting this type of early feedback, so I might as well carry on with it. Though I will admit I am making this specific review in a rush. But hopefully the remaining episodes for Season 3 won't be made in as much of a rush, so you will be able to get these reviews without them being made and uploaded as last minute as possible. If you are new here, I was given press screeners for The Boys Season 3, so I have seen the entire season already, which is how I am able to make my reviews in advance. If you are not new here and you're wondering why I keep explaining that in every video, trust me, I've had it happen numerous times when I have reviewed other television series where I keep getting asked week after week, and I would just rather not have to answer that question multiple times on every new review that I upload. Since The Boys is a show with a really packed ensemble, I usually go through and share some of my thoughts on a character by character basis, but there are some things that I'm going to say about this episode that are going to be vague, because if I specify which character or characters are involved, then it would in fact be a spoiler. Each episode of The Boys comes with a do not reveal list from the show's publicity team, and I and any other reviewer are required to not reveal anything from those lists ahead of the corresponding episode airing to the masses. Oh, and in just a general sense, I think I saw some people online saying that Herogasm was meant to be happening in this episode, and that is inaccurate. Herogasm does not happen in episode 5. So, let's get on to the rest of the review. Like I've said before, The Boys is a very impressive show when you think about how eventful each episode is. I had a list of about 2 pages of bullet points where I was writing down major plot events and maybe an additional thought that I had about some of those plot developments that I wanted to have ready for whenever I put together a spoiler review for this episode. There is something that happens in this episode that is very hard for me to watch. Obviously, I watched the scene when I first got the press screeners and binged the entire season, but when I went to rewatch just episode 5 to take fresh, updated notes to do reviews on just specific episodes one at a time, as opposed to my notes where I was just going to be talking about season 3 in its entirety, which was my first season 3 review that I uploaded about The Boys, I ended up walking out of the room when this particular scene was happening in my rewatch. The scene is done well, and it is an important development in the grand scheme of character and story, but it's hard to watch. I'm not going to say what the subject matter of the scene is, but if we look back on The Boys in its entirety and the things that have already aired, we had in the very first season that first scene between Annie and the Deep, and then later in season 1, the Deep had a very unpleasant scene with a woman he was hooking up with and his gills. Then in season 2, there was a scene where Stormfront was getting handsy with Homelander, and while she's doing that, Homelander smashed the head of a petty criminal, and then Stormfront and Homelander hooked up right there in the alleyway. So all of those scenes that I just listed from season 1 and season 2, they are dealing with very heavy subject matter, and it's part of the show's tendency to have a lot of socio-political commentary. Episode 5 has a lot of things going on. There are some laughs and fun things to watch, but there is also really serious drama and heavy socio-political commentary. And just when I think about season 3 as a whole, I personally found this scene that I'm tiptoeing around to be one of the most difficult ones to watch in this season. So if you are worried, maybe have a palate cleanser ready to watch right afterwards that can help lift you out of the heaviness of what it is that you're going to see, like a Sandra Bullock rom-com or an Amanda Bynes movie. You know what? She's the man. Watch She's the Man after season 3, episode 5, if you need a pick-me-up. That always works for me when I need one. In episode 4, we saw that Hughie took Temp V, and he's going to have to deal with the consequences of that in episode 5. Obviously, we saw that when Butcher took Temp V for the first time, he experienced some side effects, like throwing up green goo directly onto Hughie's face. The other important thing to remember, though, is that Butcher and Hughie are very different people, so it's not just about the physical side effects of Temp V, but the emotional, psychological baggage of both taking Temp V and also being in the mental state that you want to take Temp V in the first place. I think at this point in the season, we're really doing a lot to unpack certain issues Hughie is struggling with, certain fears, insecurities, anxieties that have him delusional enough to think that taking Temp V is a good idea. Seriously, I've never thought of Hughie as unintelligent, but on what planet does having your emotionally volatile friend taking a risky, unregulated, not fully tested drug and then throwing up on your face translate to, yeah, you know what? I'll have some of that. I'm not a Hughie anti, but I'm really going to need Hughie to get it together because he's really being a mess right now, and not the fun kind of mess, like a hot mess, just a mess where you're stressing me out. Certain characters you can probably already guess a lot about how they're going to be in episode 5. Butcher, Homelander, they're really two sides of the same gutted, rotted coin, just really making a mess for anyone and everyone within the immediate vicinity. You don't need the details, but the same feelings they're already making you feel all season thus far, odds are you're just going to continue to feel that way in episode 5. For Butcher specifically, we do get to see a glimpse of something for him as a character that will foreshadow certain developments we're going to get for getting a better insight into his character in this season, but we're not going to see that insight just yet. That will come in a different episode. Now, apparently there was a whole lot of a fuss last week, something about Jensen Ackles' bum breaking Prime Video. It wasn't me doing that. I had already seen the episode by that point, so I was not part of that new influx of traffic. Also, depending on what time that was happening, I was probably fast asleep because I was tired after a long work shift during whatever those technical malfunctions were. But I bring this up to reiterate that clearly Jensen Ackles is a popular attraction for a lot of people tuning in for The Boys Season 3, and to those people I will point out that we saw that last week the boys were able to find Soldier Boy's body in Russia. They unintentionally let him loose. He's out of the box. So as you can probably guess, a fair bit of episode 4 entails them trying to find him. Now, since there are so many do not reveals, instead of me saying what is in episode 5, I will share an opinion early about episode 5, and more specifically, what is not in episode 5. There is a shockingly low amount of footage of Soldier Boy while he's on the run. This is another prime example of a point that I have made in other review videos I've posted about The Boys Season 3. There are too many characters at this point, and it's stretching things too thin. When you bring a new big bad villain onto the scene, I want to see more of what they're up to. We saw that Soldier Boy was lacking clothing. So where is he going to steal some clothes from? Where is he going now that he's escaped? And how is he going to get there? Maybe you don't need to show me every tedious detail. That's what AO3 is for. Some talented aspiring writer will fill in those blanks. But let me see something. You do see Soldier Boy in this episode, I want to make that clear, but I just wanted to see more of him. I wanted to get more insight into him as a character. The percentage of airtime he gets is just so low, and you have to remember, I've already been critical of the fact that they have taken quite a while to get to the point of even introducing him in the present-day timeline of the show. We're already halfway finished with the season, and he's only just gotten loose now to hopefully, presumably, start making some problems. He's a bad guy, right? That's what bad guys do. Create problems. But to Jensen Ackles' credit, I think he has a very good moment in this episode where you actually get to start to see him communicating more about who this character is and where they are at now emotionally and psychologically, which I would presume is more along the lines of what it is that Jensen's fans have been wanting to see him do up until this point. In just a general plot sense, though, you will also get more of an idea of what the plan is for Soldier Boy as a character for the rest of the season now that he's out of the box. It doesn't mean there won't be any surprises left for him as a character from here on out, but there isn't a lot of time left, so we've got to get things going. You'll figure out what Soldier Boy is going to be trying to do for the rest of the season and where he fits into the ecosystem of what other already established characters are doing and trying to accomplish. Finally, the boys posted something really funny on their official Twitter account stating, "Our mentions since the end of last episode," and it has a picture of Darth Vader edited to say, "Where is Kimiko? Is she safe? Is she all right?" And I'm glad to see that there are so many other people who also care about Kimiko and are ready to get the pitchforks out if Eric Kripke tries any funny business with her. For anyone who doesn't already know this, I'm going to say something about the comics, so I guess it could be a spoiler if you haven't already looked this piece of trivia up or read the series. So fair warning, click off if you don't want to know what's in the comics. In the comics, Frenchie and Kimiko die. Therefore, I think a lot of us who are ride or die for Kimiko, we watch this show feeling on edge if something bad happens to her. And as we saw in episode 4 at the end, when Soldier Boy was let out of the box, he went all radioactive kaboom, and Kimiko jumped in front of the blast to save the love of her life, Frenchie. But she wasn't healing afterwards, so now all of us are panicking. I'm not going to answer anything specific about the question of whether or not Kimiko is okay, but you will get an answer to that question once you watch the episode, and it's a big Kimiko episode. Then again, I feel like I say that about every episode because as long as Kimiko is in it and she's doing Kimiko things, I think it's a big deal. But whatever, I will stand by my words and reiterate that this is a big Kimiko episode. I can't even imagine how long-winded I'm going to be in my spoiler review because I have so many things I want to say, but I cannot say right now because of spoilers. Seriously, there are so many things on the do not reveal list that I just want to get on here and wax poetic about. Anything and everything to do with Kimiko in this episode. I know that the show's talent was free to talk on the show's promotional press tour about the really cool fight scene that she had in episode 4 with the adult toys, but there is stuff in episode 5 that I really want to talk about that has not been talked about on the promo tour. At least I don't think it has. It's not like I've sat down and watched every single interview the cast has done that is available on the internet, but I've watched a few of the big ones at least, and I'm very excited to finally get to talk about what's going on with Kimiko in episode 5. As a Kimiko stan, I have a lot of things to say. So if you don't want to miss that, be sure to subscribe and come back later this week when I will be able to publish my spoiler review of this episode and we can get into all of the details. Like this video if you liked this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.